47,000 men against 100,000. The plains of northern Mesopotamia. October 1st, 331 before the Common Era. A Macedonian king barely 25 years old staring at an army twice his size. Scythed chariots with blades long enough to cut a man in half. 15 war elephants. Cavalry from every corner of the known world. This is Gaugamela. The day one empire dies and another is born. The day a battle plan written on scraps becomes the textbook every general studies for the next 2,000 years. How a man named Bessus murdered his own king in the dirt. This is what really happened at Gaugamela, at Issus in 333. Both times he ran, both times Alexander captured his family, his mother Sisygambis, his wife Statira, his daughters. The treasuries of Damascus and Memphis fell. The Mediterranean coast belonged to Macedonia. Parmenion, his second in command, said if he were Alexander, he would accept. Alexander said if he were Parmenion, he would too. No deal. One throne, one king. The war continues. They saw the Macedonians coming and fled. Alexander crossed unopposed, took the northern route instead of marching straight to Babylon, left the Euphrates and the Armenian mountains on his left flank. Easier to find food, cooler than the southern desert route. Darius had expected the southern approach. The same road Cyrus the Younger took in 401. Mazaeus scorched the earth anyway. Burned fields, burned houses, burned food stores. The Macedonians marched through smoke. 4 days later, September 24th, Macedonian scouts captured Persian cavalry, tortured them. Learned Darius waited at Gaugamela, 8 miles away. A village on the river Bamotis, 75 kilometers northwest of Arbela, modern Erbil in Iraqi Kurdistan. The name Gaugamela means the camel's house in the Semitic languages, a hill shaped like a dromedary's hump. No rivers to pin him, no mountains to trap him like at Issus. He wanted room for his cavalry, room for his chariots. He had his engineers level the ground even more, cleared brush, removed obstacles, prepared lanes for 200 scythed chariots to charge, set traps and caltrops on the approaches. The astronomical diaries from Babylon record the panic in the Persian camp on September 20th. The eclipse terrified them. Darius assembled the largest army he could muster. Modern estimates based on ancient texts range from 52,000 to over 200,000. Ancient sources like Arrian claim 1 million. Absurd. The real numbers were still massive. Around 100,000 infantry, 30 to 40,000 cavalry, 200 scythed chariots, 15 war elephants from India. Bessus, satrap of Bactria, and Darius's cousin commanded the left wing. Bactrian cavalry, Scythian horse archers in cataphract armor, Dahai cavalry, Arachosian cavalry, 1,000 of the finest riders from the eastern satrapies, 100 scythed chariots in front. Mazaeus commanded the right, Syrian cavalry, Median cavalry, Mesopotamian cavalry, Parthian cavalry, Armenian and Cappadocian cavalry in the front ranks, another 100 scythed chariots. The Immortals, 10,000 Persian foot guards called apple-bearers by the Greeks for the golden counterweights on their spears, 2,000 Greek mercenary hoplites, the best infantry in the Persian host, Indian cavalry, Mardian archers, Babylonian infantry behind them in a hollow, and the war elephants positioned close to the king, and the entire Persian line stretched over a mile, far outflanking the Macedonians. Alexander's army numbered 47,000, 40,000 infantry, 7,000 cavalry, small compared to Darius, but these men had marched from Macedonia to Egypt. They had won at Granicus, won at Issus, fought sieges at Tyre and Gaza, trained together, bled together. The core was Macedonian. 9,000 in the phalanx armed with sarissas, 18-foot pikes, 3,000 hypaspists, elite shield-bearers. The companion cavalry, Alexander's personal mounted force, numbered around 1,800. The Salian cavalry on the left, Greek allies, Thracian peltasts, Cretan archers, Agrianian javelineers. The phalanx stood in the center in 2 lines, a double phalanx. If the Persians broke through or flanked them, the second line would turn and fight. Infantry angled back 45 degrees on both flanks to prevent encirclement. Alexander took the right wing himself. The companion cavalry, Paeonian cavalry, Greek mercenary cavalry, half the archers, Agrianian javelineers. Made camp on hills about 7 miles from the Persian army, sent scouts forward at night, captured more Persians, learned about the cleared ground, the traps, the chariot lanes. On the night before battle, Parmenion suggested a night attack, catch Darius unprepared. Alexander refused, called it dishonorable. The real reason was tactical. A night battle would neutralize his disciplined formations, turn it into chaos, favor the larger army. Alexander spent most of the night awake, reviewing scenarios, planning movements. His generals found him asleep in his tent just before noon on October 1st. They woke him, surprised he could sleep. He said he finally could because Darius had given him a clear battlefield instead of retreating. The Macedonians ate a full meal, rested. The Persians had stayed awake all night, fearing the attack that never came, exhausted, hungry, demoralized. October 1st, 331 before the Common Era. Mid-morning, the armies faced each other. The Persian line stretched across the plain. Impossible to see the ends. Darius in the center in his chariot, purple robes, golden armor, visible to every man in his army. The Macedonian line looked tiny, a third of the Persian frontage. Alexander on the right wing on his horse, Bucephalus. Black coat, white star on the forehead. 17 years old. The horse had carried Alexander since he was a boy. Heading toward rough terrain, Darius had not cleared. A savage cavalry battle erupted on the Macedonian right. Scythians had the advantage. Better armor, better horses. But the Macedonians fought with discipline, held formation, eventually broke the Scythian attack. Others say Alexander exploited an error. Either way, the gap appeared. But first, Darius unleashed his scythed chariots. The phalanx opened lanes, let the surviving chariots pass through harmlessly. Grooms and rearguard troops in the back killed the crews, captured the horses. Most chariots did little damage. A few crashed into Persian ranks instead, panicked by the noise. The shield beating, the screaming, horses' eyes rolling white, trampling their own side. Behind him, the high paspists, 4 battalions of the phalanx, around 10,000 men total. He wheeled left, charged directly at the gap. The Persian left center crumbled. Alexander drove straight for Darius in the center. The shock was overwhelming. The Macedonian pikes jabbed. The cavalry cut through. Darius saw Alexander coming, close enough to throw a javelin. Some accounts say Alexander threw, missed Darius, hit and killed his chariot driver. Darius panicked, turned his chariot, fled the battlefield. Second time he ran from Alexander. His personal bodyguard tried to cover the retreat. 2,000 Greek mercenaries stood their ground, lost 500 men buying time for Darius to escape. All equipped with new long swords and spears instead of javelins, link armor. They pressed the Macedonian left, tried to envelop Parmenion completely. Some Persian and Indian cavalry saw a gap between the Macedonian left and center, where Alexander had taken 4 phalanx battalions to charge Darius. They rode through, headed straight for the Macedonian camp, tried to rescue Darius's mother and family. Sysigambis refused to go. The second phalanx line turned, attacked the Persian cavalry from behind, trapped them. The fiercest fighting of the entire battle. Arrian describes it as brutal. 60 companions killed. Alexander's closest friends, Hephaestion, Coldness, and Menidas, all wounded. A desperate melee. No room to maneuver. Just hacking and stabbing. The Macedonians fought through. Quality over quantity. Broke the Persian cavalry. Drove them off. The news of Darius fleeing had reached the Persian right wing. Morale collapsed. Mazaeus, a mercenary at heart, decided his contract was done. Withdrew his forces. Bessus on the left did the same. Saw the center broken, the king gone. Led his Bactrian cavalry off the field in good order. The only Persian unit to withdraw intact. Chased them 35 miles toward Arbela. Slaughtered fugitives until nightfall. Reached Arbela after dark. Found Darius's chariot, his bow, his personal possessions. But no Darius. The king had escaped again. Headed east toward Ecbatana with Bessus's Bactrians. Remnants of the royal guard, 2,000 Greek mercenaries. Diodorus and Curtius give higher numbers. Modern estimates suggest around 500 to 1,200 Macedonian casualties total, killed and wounded. Persian losses were catastrophic. Modern estimates around 40,000 to 53,000 killed. The battlefield littered with bodies, equipment, horses. The war elephants, 15 of them. Indian mahouts surrendered them. Bagaphanes, the Persian commander at Babylon, sent word the city would surrender without a fight. Alexander marched to Babylon in November 331, entered peacefully. The Babylonians welcomed him, saw him as a liberator from Persian rule. Captured 14 years of accumulated tribute, unimaginable wealth, gold, silver, treasures from across the empire. In January 330, Alexander burned Persepolis. Some sources say he was outraged by the extravagance. Others say it was revenge for Xerxes burning Athens in 480. Others claim it happened during a drunken party. The hetera Thais allegedly encouraged it. Whatever the reason, Persepolis burned. Darius fled to the eastern satrapies, tried to raise another army, sent letters to his satraps, begged for loyalty. They read the letters and made calculations. Bessus calculated first, arrested Darius in July 330, claimed he was incompetent, a disaster for Persia, put him in golden chains, then murdered him in the desert, stabbed and left in the dirt of Bactria, proclaimed himself Artaxerxes V, king of Persia. Alexander heard of the murder, rode hard, found Darius's body. Ancient sources say Alexander wept, covered the corpse with his own cloak. He had respected Darius as an opponent, to die murdered by his own men, betrayed. It offended Alexander's sense of honor. He gave Darius a full royal burial at Persepolis, full Persian rites. Then he swore to hunt Bessus down. Modern Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. Alexander followed, relentless. Bessus's own officers eventually betrayed him, handed him over in 329. Alexander had him mutilated, nose and ears cut off, Persian custom for traitors, then executed him publicly, torn apart by trees bent and released. Savage, a message to anyone who would betray their king. The dynasty founded by Cyrus II 2 centuries before ended on a dirt road in Bactria. Alexander took the title King of Asia. He was 25 years old, controlled territory from Greece to the Hindu Kush, from Egypt to Central Asia, the largest empire the world had seen. In 330, Alexander's best friend Philotas, Parmenio's son, was accused of conspiracy, tortured, confessed under duress, executed. Alexander decided Parmenio could not be allowed to live. Too dangerous, sent assassins to kill him. Parmenio was murdered without trial, without evidence. He had served Philip II for decades, served Alexander loyally, held the line at Issus, held the line at Gaugamela. His reward was a knife in the dark. Alexander's paranoia had begun. The use of combined arms, cavalry and infantry supporting each other, became doctrine. He could have been 61. One different decision, one unlucky spear thrust, the entire history of the world changes. Plutarch's Life of Alexander. The astronomical diaries from Babylon, contemporary cuneiform tablets that mention the battle and the lunar eclipse. These sources contradict each other on details, troop numbers, casualty figures, the sequence of events, but they agree on the outcome, a complete Macedonian victory, the end of the Persian Empire. Sir Aurel Stein, in 1938, proposed a site near Tel Gomel, east of Mosul, 36 degrees 21 minutes north, 43 degrees 15 minutes east. But nothing definitive, no mass graves found, no weapon deposits. The plain has been farmed for over 2,000 years, any evidence long since plowed under or looted. October 1st, 331. Before the Common Era, 47,000 Macedonians defeated 100,000 Persians on an open plain in northern Mesopotamia. They did it through superior training, superior tactics, and superior leadership. They did it despite being outnumbered 2 to 1, despite facing scythed chariots and war elephants, despite fighting on ground the enemy had prepared. They did it because Alexander saw a gap and charged it without hesitation, because Parmenion held the left even when surrounded, because the phalanx held formation under chariot assault, because 60 companions died in a cavalry melee to let Alexander reach Parmenion in time. Also, this script is researched and factual, using sources from Arrian's Anabasis, which relied on eyewitness accounts from Ptolemy, who fought at Gaugamela, the astronomical diaries from Babylon, which are contemporary cuneiform records from October 331 before the Common Era, mentioning the eclipse and the battle, and recent archaeological scholarship, like Jonah Lendering's analysis, published on livius.org in 2021, examining Persian strategy. These aren't just history books, these are the receipts. Now back to the information. The fusion of Greek and Persian culture created something new: art, architecture, philosophy, science, the Library of Alexandria, the lighthouse, the museum, all products of the world Alexander created. Too far from home. Too many battles. Too many dead friends. Alexander turned back. Died in Babylon in June 323 before the Common Era. Age 32. Fever, possibly malaria, possibly poison. His empire immediately fractured. His generals, the Diadochi, fought over the pieces for 40 years. Ptolemy took Egypt. Seleucus took Syria and Persia. Antigonus tried to reunite the empire. Failed. Died at the Battle of Ipsus in 301. 300 years after Gaugamela, all of Alexander's successor kingdoms were gone, conquered by Rome. But the cultural legacy remained. The Hellenistic world shaped Rome. Rome shaped Europe. Europe shaped the world. Darius III is remembered as the king who lost an empire. Unfair. He inherited a fractured realm, fought a military genius with a professional army, made reasonable strategic decisions, chose good ground, assembled a massive force. The eclipse on September 20th shattered morale before the battle even started. Hard to recover from that. His mistake was fleeing, twice. Kings who run lose the loyalty of their men. Bessus and the other satraps murdered him not just because he lost, but because he ran. In Persian culture, a king fights. A king dies if necessary. A king does not abandon his army. Darius abandoned his army at Issus, abandoned his army at Gaugamela. He paid for that with his life. But look closer. The cracks show. Parmenio murdered. Clytus the Black, who saved Alexander's life at Granicus, murdered by Alexander in a drunken rage in 328. Callisthenes, Alexander's historian, arrested and killed in 327 for refusing to prostrate before Alexander. The proskynesis incident, Alexander demanding Persian-style worship from his Macedonian and Greek troops. They refused. Saw it as tyranny, Alexander insisted. The divide grew. When that was gone, nothing held it together. Pike made of cornel wood, iron tip, bronze butt spike. Formation was 16 men deep. First 5 ranks pointed pikes forward. A hedge of iron. The rear ranks held pikes upright, protected against arrows, missiles. Each phalangite wore a bronze helmet, linen cuirass, small shield strapped to the left arm, short sword as backup. The phalanx moved as one, locked shields, stepped together, pushed forward, unstoppable on level ground. Vulnerable on rough terrain, vulnerable to flanking. That is why Alexander always paired them with cavalry. The phalanx pinned the enemy, the cavalry broke them. Double-tipped, so if the shaft broke, you could reverse it. Breastplate, helmet, kopis, sword for close combat, curved blade, chopping weapon, brutal in a melee. The companions fought in a wedge formation. Alexander at the tip, concentrated force, maximum shock, punched through enemy lines, turned and rolled up flanks. Combined with the phalanx push, it was devastating. The Thessalian cavalry on the Macedonian left at Gaugamela is sometimes called the best cavalry in Alexander's army. Thessaly bred horses for centuries, excellent riders, heavy cavalry like the companions, but fought in a different formation, more flexible, better at defensive holding actions. That is why Parmenio commanded them. His job was not to win. His job was not to lose. Hold the left, pin the Persian right, let Alexander win on the right. Parmenio did exactly that. Held against overwhelming odds, Mazaeus threw everything at him. Parmenio bent, but did not break. That is what made Gaugamela work. At full gallop, they could tear through a formation, cut men in half, trample the wounded, but they required flat ground, clear lanes, disciplined horses that would not shy from noise. The Macedonians trained to counter them, created lanes, shot the horses, grabbed the reins, killed the drivers. Most chariots did no damage, a few caused chaos, but not enough to matter. The war elephants at Gaugamela are mentioned by ancient sources, but apparently were not used in the battle. Darius brought 15 from India. Indian mahouts controlled them. Elephants were new to the Greeks, terrifying, huge, armored, could crush infantry, scatter cavalry. But at Gaugamela, the elephants stayed in the rear. Maybe Darius thought the ground was not right. Maybe the mahouts refused to charge without proper support. Maybe the elephants were tired from the march. We do not know. After the battle, the Macedonians captured all 15. Alexander later used elephants in India, at the Hydaspes River in 326. By then, he understood them, knew their weaknesses, used archers to panic them, turned them back into their own lines. Named immortals because their number never changed. If one died, another replaced him immediately. They carried spears with golden apple counterweights on the butts, hence the Greek name apple bearers. Wicker shields, bows, swords, good troops, but not comparable to Macedonian phalanx or Greek hoplites. Persian military doctrine favored mobility and archery, not heavy infantry shock combat. The immortals did their job at Gaugamela. Stood their ground around Darius, covered his retreat when he fled. Many died, not enough. Directly opposite the Macedonian phalanx. When Darius fled, the Greek mercenaries held. 500 died covering the retreat. The rest withdrew in good order. Later, some joined Alexander. Others went home. Mercenaries. No shame in defeat if you fought well and got paid. Contemporary cuneiform tablets. The entry reads, "On the 13th day of the month of Ululu in the 5th year of Darius, there was an eclipse of the moon which was entirely darkened as Jupiter set." Exact date, exact observation, no mythology, just data. This is why the eclipse is important. It allows us to date the battle precisely. 4 days later, September 24th, Alexander's scouts captured Persians who reported Darius was 8 miles away. 4 more days rest, October 1st, battle day. The chronology is tight, reliable. The priests knew this. Morale collapsed before the battle even started. Alexander's Egyptian priests interpreted the eclipse the opposite way. The moon belonged to Persia. The sun belonged to Greece. The moon darkening meant Persian defeat, Greek victory. Convenient, probably calculated. But it worked. Macedonian morale stayed high. He was not Persian, not a noble, a professional soldier. Commanded the defense of the Euphrates crossings. Failed. Burned the land to slow Alexander. Failed. Fought hard at Gaugamela. Held Parmenion down, almost won his sector. But when Darius fled and the center collapsed, Mazaeus read the situation, withdrew his forces, saved his men. After the battle, he surrendered Babylon to Alexander without a fight. Alexander rewarded him, made him satrap of Babylonia, let him keep his position. Mazius served Alexander loyally until his death in 328. Pragmatist, survivor. Later he arrested Darius, murdered him, proclaimed himself king. Artaxerxes V thought he could rally the eastern satrapies, continue the war. He was wrong. Alexander hunted him down. His own officers betrayed him, handed him over. Alexander had him mutilated, nose and ears cut off. Persian punishment for regicide, then executed brutally, torn apart by bent trees. Savage. A message: you do not betray your king. Sisygambis, Darius's mother, is a footnote but an important one. Captured at Issus in 333, held by Alexander for 2 years, treated well. Alexander showed her respect, called her mother. When Persian cavalry broke through at Gaugamela and reached the Macedonian camp, they tried to rescue her. She refused to go, stayed with Alexander. Some sources say she saw him as more honorable than her own son. Darius fled twice. Alexander faced danger. When Alexander died in 323, Sisygambis was still alive. In Babylon, she heard the news, stopped eating, died of grief within days, loyalty, even to a conqueror. 4,000 talents of silver in the baggage train, the war elephants. But Darius was gone, headed east with Bessus and a few thousand survivors. Alexander did not follow immediately. Too dark, too dangerous. Turned back to the battlefield, checked on Parmenion, secured the camp, collected the wounded, buried the dead. The next day he marched to Arbela, rested his army, tended the injured, then moved south to Babylon. Babylon surrendered without a fight in November 331. Bagophanes, the Persian commander, sent word the city would not resist. The gates opened. Alexander entered peacefully. The Babylonians welcomed him, saw him as a liberator. Darius had taxed them heavily, suppressed local cults. Alexander restored the temples, funded the priests, let the Babylonians govern themselves. Smart politics. He stayed in Babylon for weeks. Reorganized the satrapy, rested his army, then marched east to Susa. The heart of the empire, 14 years of accumulated tribute, gold, silver, art, treasures from every corner of the empire, more than 120,000 talents, the richest city in the world. Revenge for Xerxes, burning Athens in 480, symbolic end of the Persian Empire, a drunken party gone wrong, Thais, the hetaira, encouraging it, probably all of the above. Alexander regretted it later, tried to blame the wine, but the damage was done. The ceremonial capital of Persia, gone. Stabbed in the desert by Bessus and other satraps, left to die. Alexander found the body, wept, covered it with his cloak, sent it to Persepolis for burial, full royal honors. He pursued Bessus for a year, caught him in 329 in Sogdiana, had him executed, then continued east, Bactria, Sogdiana, the Hindu Kush, the Indus Valley, conquering, always conquering. From mid-morning to late afternoon, October 1st, 331 before the Common Era. In those 6 hours, the largest empire in the world fell. 50 million people changed rulers. A 200-year-old dynasty ended. A 25-year-old Macedonian king became the most powerful man alive, all because of a gap in a line, a cavalry charge, a king who fled, and 60 companions who died, so Alexander could reach Parmenion in time. Modern military historians still study Gaugamela, the tactics, the formations, the decisions. Alexander's oblique approach became standard doctrine. The refused flank, draw the enemy out of position, create a gap, exploit it with concentrated force. Napoleon studied it. Frederick the Great studied it. Patton studied it. Every military academy teaches it. The hammer and anvil, cavalry strikes, while infantry pins, combined arms, mutual support. Gaugamela is the textbook example. The bodies rotted for weeks. Villagers buried some, others just bones on the plain. Coenus wounded, Menidas wounded. They survived, fought in later battles. But the 60? Gone. A blade in the dark. That is the price of loyalty in Alexander's empire. His Macedonians hated it, saw it as betrayal. The divide grew. By 323, Alexander was more Persian than Greek, more tyrant than king. When he died, nobody mourned. They fought over the corpse. Until they finally said no. At the Hyphasis River in 326. No more. We are done. Turn back. Alexander wanted to continue, wanted to reach the ocean, the edge of the world. His army refused, mutinied. He turned back. Died 2 years later in Babylon. Never saw Macedonia again. By 323, he believed his own mythology. Planned invasions of Arabia, North Africa, Italy, Spain. Insane ambitions. His body could not keep up. Fever in Babylon. June 323. 10 days. Dead. Age 32. Eratosthenes, the Ptolemies, the The Seleucids, 300 years of cultural flowering, all because of one battle, one day, one gap in a line. The bodies were reburied, the site unmarked, but somewhere under the farms and fields north of Erbil, the bones of Gaugamela lie, Macedonian phalangites, Persian immortals, Bactrian cavalry, Greek mercenaries, all mixed together, all forgotten, except in the history books.